Hi, it's Amy from the Ross Farm, and this is Sheep and Wool School, episode 11. I can't believe we're at 11 already. I'm very excited. We missed last week, and I'm sorry for that. I wasn't home, and we thought we would be able to get it done, but it just didn't come together. So I thought rather than put something together that was sort of rushed and all over the place, I would just wait until this week to put something together that maybe had some substance to it. So this month we have a new breed that we're going to talk about for our anything along. And remember, everything that you do in the breeds that we've done so far or that we do this year, post it to social media, tag me, and hashtag anything along or anything along KAL. This is going to be a really fun one this month, and it's one of my very favorite breeds. We'll talk about that in a minute. You know what I'm most excited about right now? I'm most excited about Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is coming up in just about 3 weeks. So excited. So very, very excited. It's always my favorite. It was the first big show we ever got into, and it's where I get to see all of my friends, and their breed display is epic. I get to see all of my friends in all of the other breeds. I'll get to see the crew from Mount Vernon, and we'll talk more about that in a minute too. I just get to see so many folks from all over the country, and it's always just an absolute blast. And this year is going to be super fun because some of my very favorite people are joining us in the booth this year for Maryland Sheep and Wool. But let me tell you a story. First up is On the Needles, and this is a very special knit that I'm working on right now because I've knit it before, and it turned out pretty good, and it's been one of my very favorite pieces that I've ever made. I wear it all the time, even now, 10 years later. I didn't realize it had been 10 years until I started really thinking about knitting a second one because I wear the first one so much. And I have a new yarn that we talked about last time it's going to be absolutely perfection and different enough from the one I already have that it's not going to compete. It'll be in addition to instead of. So 10 years ago, I knit this pattern, Hitofude, which was like all the rage. Everybody was knitting it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to knit it in my yarn just to see how that'll turn out because everybody was knitting it in commercial merino and cotton and silk and all sorts of commercial yarns. So I wanted to see how it would turn out in my very natural, very farmy, very toothy, rustic yarns, and especially in Leicester Longwool, which, everybody fights with me is, not a great wool for knitting because it's a coarse wool. That doesn't mean it's not soft. I wish people would understand that coarse does not mean scratchy. And it's literally the sweater I wear all the time. So 10 years ago, my friend Hez and I were going to do the booth at Maryland with Scooter Pie, and it was our first year at Maryland. And Hez says, you know what, we should enter some contests. And I said, no, that's scary. I've only been knitting about a year. I'm not going to do that. That is a very bad idea. I really don't need somebody to tear apart my beginning knitting and, just destroy my confidence. I don't want to compete in anything. And she said, oh, come on, we'll both do it. So I think she entered some hand spun, and I believe it was a shawl. So we entered them, and we got a little bit of a break in the afternoon and went over to see how her pieces did because I knew mine was crap and nobody would care and nobody would like it. And I'd be really, really glad if they even gave it back to me because it was, I had only been knitting since the fall of the previous year. So I didn't expect anything. And we went over to the garment competition, and mine, when we entered it, had to be entered under commercial because it was mill spun yarn, not hand spun. So it was up against all of the beautiful merino and silk and just gorgeous commercially produced yarns that you can find in all of the local yarn stores. So I was not expecting anything at all. So we went in and we were poking around and looking, and she found her shawl, and they had some really good comments on it. And I couldn't find my sweater anywhere with all of the other sweaters. And I said, "Has this sweater must have been so bad that they just like put it in a bag and threw it under the table. Like it's not here with the other sweaters." And she says, "Aim, that's because it's on the mannequin." And that's the story of the time that me, a beginning knitter, got a blue ribbon at Maryland Sheep and Wool for the first sweater I ever knit. And that's the Hitofude. And I decided that with our new yarn, I was going to knit a second one because I must be okay at it if I manage to pull off a win at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So I started it in our new Wensleydale fingering, Ewenice, and I cast on last weekend, and I've been trucking away on knitting this. I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm halfway through the 7th repeat, and for this size, I need to do 15 before I go on to the next process. And the thing that I love most about this, well, one of the things I love most about this particular pattern is that Hitofude means single stroke. And the entire sweater is constructed so that there is no seaming, there is no breaking the yarns. If I had a giant, like 1,300 yard ball of yarn, I could knit straight through it from beginning to end without ever having to break the yarn or create a join. So this is what's left of the first ball of yarn, and I'm going to probably have to put on the second one here in not very, very long. And I'm just trucking along, and I am loving it so much. It starts with a crochet provisional cast on that I will then put back on the needles and unzip at some point to do a different process, so that this is actually the upper back and the sleeves. So I will turn this into a tube, and then the peplum gets knit out of the bottom of this panel. So it's a very, very cool construction. And if you haven't knit it, I encourage you to try it. And if you have knit it, I think it's time to knit another one. I would be happy to host a knit along for the Hitofude. And somebody asked me when I cast this on if I was going to enter it at Maryland and see if I could get the same result 10 years later. And the answer is absolutely not, because lightning does not strike twice. But really, I want this for a sample for the booth for the new yarn. So it cannot go to the competition because it will be in the booth. That being said, it may be in the booth not quite finished. And that'll be okay too. People will be able to see what it looks like knit up, whether it's actually a wearable sweater or not. And I know I have friends out there. I've seen you at shows. I've seen you at retreats who wear your partially finished sweater with the needles still in it or on the try it on tubing. And I'm pretty sure that Busty Betty up here is probably going to be rocking it with the needles still in it at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So with any luck whatsoever, it will at least have sleeves at that point, and she won't have to have it pinned on her. But I feel like Betty is probably just jonesing to put on this new Hitofude. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm also taking the bind off out of my son's kilt hose that I knit for him. These are very, very basic. He wears these when he goes to do historic reenactment. Drew reenacts the period that was hot in our area, Washington County, Pennsylvania, which is the Whiskey Rebellion. And so for his Whiskey Rebellion reenactments, um, which he has another one coming up, I think in May, he wanted a pair of wool kilt hose from our flock, and these are actually Cheviot because we all know that's his favorite. But they are a little bit tight in the calves, and it's basically because I was running out of yarn and just bound them off. So I pulled another. This is actually the last skein of Scottish sock until the new stuff comes back from the mill, probably next month. Um, so I wanted to put some sort of a different top on so they stretch a little bit more around his meaty calves. So that's what I'm going to be working on as well in the next couple of weeks. Are you ready for Sheep and Wool School? Because this month's breed is so cool. So cool. I know I probably say that about every breed, but if you know me, you know I love sheep and I think all of them are really cool. But this month is the Hog Island sheep, and we're going to talk a little bit about their history because it's pretty cool too. So, the Hog Island sheep, they developed ferally, if you can believe it. So, Hog Island is a little island off the coast of Virginia, and it was inhabited by humans with all of the sheep that they needed, all of their livestock, whatever, um, from the 1700s on. So it's kind of at the mouth of the James River, right there in coastal Virginia. And there were humans that lived there with all of their sheep. They would have brought sheep for making clothing, for eating, all of those things. Now, probably would have been something, a lot of genetics from the Dorset type sheep. Those would have been prevalent in the 1700s. Probably a few Tunis. There were a lot of Tunis in coastal Virginia in the 18th century as well, and then probably some influence from merino sheep that would have swum ashore as um, ships crashed along the coastline. That happened more often than you think. On coastal islands, shipwrecks would happen, and any livestock that could swim ashore would, and then you'd end up with these feral populations of livestock that were just sort of running loose and doing their own thing if they were able to make it to the shore and find enough um, sustenance to continue. So that's probably the basic genetics of what these developed out of. Because in 1933, there was a major weather event, and all of the humans were evacuated from Hog Island. And of course, in the evacuation, they had to leave their livestock behind because you can't take those with you. So most of the structures on the island were destroyed, and over the 1930s and 1940s, everybody leaves the island. They leave their sheep behind. So, in the 1970s, the Nature Conservancy buys the island and says, there's a bunch of sheep here. What are we going to do with these sheep? There's a bunch of sheep here. We got to get the sheep gone. So, they start rounding up the sheep, and they round up all the sheep. They take them ashore. They sell them to private individuals. They put them into historic properties like George Washington's birthplace, Gunston Hall, George Washington's Mount Vernon, which we'll come back to, and they start moving them off the island. So they get all the sheep off the island. So they go back and they're doing their work there as the Nature Conservancy, puttering around, and there's sheep there. So they round them all up and they take them all off and they sell them to private individuals, and they go to Mount Vernon, they go to George Washington's birthplace, they go to Gunston, they go all of the places that the first load went. So they go back and they're doing their thing again, and there's sheep there. So they round them all up again. And I feel like this time they must have taken somebody with them who was a little bit more thorough, because that particular time they actually did successfully round up all of the Hog Islands. So they get all of the sheep off the island, and they go to all of these places. And George Washington's Mount Vernon is really the only place that has that at that point was preserving those particular genetics and trying to keep a closed flock as the Hog Island sheep. Okay, so that's where our foundation stock really comes from, is the work of the Mount Vernon Ladies Association and all of the folks at Mount Vernon. Um, and for the last 30 years, that's been my friend Lisa. And she's amazing. And I don't think the Hog Islands would be where they are today if it wasn't for her particular passion for this particular breed of sheep. So these are three of my sheep that Scooter happened to catch in a photograph just as the sun was setting on the hillside. And it always blew my mind that he was able to capture this shot, because they are perfectly lined up, exactly the same. This was a natural photograph, no AI, no computer manipulation, no Photoshop. He took this shot. The sheep on the far right, the lighter of the three, that is Nell. She was one of our first ewes from Mount Vernon. She also went to Maryland Sheep and Wool to represent her breed a couple of years before she came to live with us. And the sheep can be horned or polled, which, if you notice, all two of the three have horns and the third one does not. These are all three female. So it doesn't matter which sex, males or females can either have horns or no horns. They only have two, not like the Jacobs, but they are very, very interesting in their structure there. This is my son's bottle lamb Bubbles, and he actually took this photo. The reason I included this one is because the lambs can be born with spots all over their body or just on their face. And the interesting thing is, most of them will lose all of the spots on their bodies by the first by their first shearing. So by the time they're a year old, all of the spots in their wool that they are born with will disappear, and the spots on their face and legs will stay. So I always think that's a very interesting fact about Hog Island sheep. This is another one of our Hog Islands, and it has a little bit different spotting pattern. I kind of giggled because this one kind of came out looking a little bit like a Wensleydale. But as it grew, the fleece kind of changed, the spots went away, and it ended up being a horned ewe with just a very dark face. The white on the face kind of disappeared too. The ears stood up. It changed completely by the time she grew. I wish I had a picture of her as an adult, but that's not something I was able to find today. And that's Bubbles, the house lamb. And you see how he also had spots around his eyes and around his nose, and the spots on the legs, and you can see the little spots on his back. He went everywhere with Drew when he was a baby. We're very serious about giving them all the chances they can get to grow and thrive. And when his mother turned up with no milk, he became a house lamb, and he went on the road with Drew doing all the reenactments that year, and retired to a small fiber flock near us because he had to be weathered, castrated, because it's very dangerous to keep a bottle lamb ram. As connected as they are to people, they can become very aggressive. So Bubbles became a wether and went to be a fiber sheep. And this is Nell that was in the first photo with one of her lambs. And she's probably my favorite lamb ever. You see, she's solid white and has a totally different look than the other lambs that we looked at. And you notice that her mother is kind of a fawn color with a dark face and legs, and she is completely white because her father, Meatloaf, Meatloaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. That's another funny thing about the Mount Vernon flock is Lisa picks a different um, she picks a different theme every year, and that year it happened to be rock and roll. So so her father's name was Meatloaf, and her mother was from the year that she picked movies. So her mother was Nell. Um, so I just wanted you to see how very different they can look because the genetics are just all over the place. The cool thing is they did a genetic study with the Smithsonian Biodiversity Preservation Project, and they are definitely a separate and distinct breed from any other sheep, but they share a lot of similarities with the other breeds that develop fairly, like the Gulf Coast Native and the Florida Cracker. So when we talk about those breeds, we'll probably refer back to the Hog Island a little bit. So the very interesting thing that I wanted to bring to your attention this week also is that Lisa and I have planned the first ever Hog Island Sheep Breeders Association conference. And if you have any interest in learning more about raising Hog Island sheep, working with Hog Island sheep, um, preserving the Hog Island sheep, I encourage you to attend the conference. The conference is going to be held at Mount Vernon, um, actually on property. We have a room block just down the road, and we'll be having speakers about the history of the Hog Island sheep, working with the Hog Island fleece, which you know who that is, um, and also a speaker from the Livestock Conservancy about the importance of working with rare breeds and registrations and all of that sort of thing. So I'm really, really excited. July 18th through 20th, we'll also be having dinners at the Mount Vernon Inn and a private reception and whiskey tasting at George Washington's distillery. So this is going to be super fun and really interesting. So if you, oh, and then the final day, we will actually be doing some hands-on work with the flock of hog islands at Mount Vernon. So if you're into that, I definitely think you should sign up. And if you've ever considered raising rare breeds, even if you're not really thinking about the Hog Island sheep, you'll get a lot of good information about raising rare breeds at the conference. So you're invited. Hope you can come. July 18th through the 20th. So that would be Sheep and Wool School for today. Next week, we'll talk about working with them a little bit. And now we are on to sewing. I have been in my studio with Kaif the Bernina so much this week. It was one of those weeks where it was just gray and cold, and I needed winter to be over, and I needed the calming nature of working in my studio. So I was actually able to finish the Snow Day Surprise, which was the March Polka Dot Pincushion UFO Challenge project. And you might get to see a picture of that one. And then that one was nope, that's not it, but that's another one that I did. That's Sweet Land of Liberty. I actually finished that one just a couple of days ago. The center is a panel, but the rest around it is all pieced. And I wanted to kind of get that going for Memorial Day and the 4th of July. So that will go up on the wall in the living room at the house for Memorial Day. And that was the April Polka Dot Pincushion UFO Challenge project that I had the month of April to finish, but I was actually able to finish it early. So this one I really love because on the on the top left is a panel that has all sorts of interesting things about the state of Ohio, and then the word OHIO and the all the Ohio stars across the bottom. Those are all pieced borders that I added to the panel, and this will also go on the wall in the living room, or it may go over the back of a chair as a lap quilt for when I'm sitting in the living room without the dogs. So that was all from the All Ohio Shop Hop in 2023. Each year they have an All Ohio Shop Hop in several states and regions across the country. Florida's really big too. But we had that year, I believe it was 84 different shops in the state of Ohio that you could go to. And I didn't make it to all of them, but I made it to several. And this was one of the one of the projects that they had patterns for in the All Ohio Shop Hop magazine that held the passport and everything in it. There were several patterns, but I really loved this one, and I wanted to make it for my Ohio home. So this is the Ohio Star border that is along the bottom of that quilt that I pieced. And I got my corners pretty good. Those are all quarter square triangles for the points. And I have kind of a neat technique for making those that doesn't involve cutting a zillion little tiny triangles. So when we get to the point that we're doing the technique videos, this will be one of the techniques that I'll show you guys because it's really fun. And underneath it, you can see the magazine that the instructions are in, and those are the stacks of fabric that's cut and ready to go into the rest of the quilt. And that was a teeny tiny that I created with some of the fabrics that were left over from that Sweet Land of Liberty, the Sparkler's Quilt. It had a little extra pattern tucked in to make this teeny tiny, and then I had purchased the little wall hanger there that it will hang on as soon as it is quilted and bound, and that can go up on the wall for Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and of course Flag Day, and we cannot forget Veterans Day, my dad's favorite holiday. So when it's time to show the red, white, and blue, that one will go up too. That is the Snow Day Surprise. I think we talked about this a little bit in March, but just to refresh your memory, this was from my home quilt shop back in Pennsylvania. Every year in December, they sell a mystery quilt kit for the Snow Day Surprise, and you have the pattern dropped into your email inbox on the first major snow day in the greater Pittsburgh area, or actually I think right at the shop. And if there isn't a big snow day, then they send it out on Valentine's Day instead. So this last 3 years, it's come out on Valentine's Day because they haven't had much snow. This one I did modify slightly. I added that sawtooth border around the central motifs. And the cool thing about this particular block pattern is if you look at the corners of each of the blocks, it creates a secondary star with four different sets of points that come from the other blocks. So I really liked these half square triangles and decided a sawtooth border, and then the wide blue border would really make it cool. And then I found a really neat shirting style fabric when we were down in Navarre, which we talked about in the last episode, that will go on the back of this one. And that's my Norman Hall wheel in the background. I didn't even notice was there. So anyways, Norm's hanging out in the living room right now. I haven't been spinning lately on him, but I do love my Norm Hall. So the next thing up is new and noteworthy, which I may have had a bit of a little panic when all of the tariff stuff started happening. And I may or may not have ordered a bunch of Louette products just to make sure I could get them here for the shows this year. So we have multiple S10 spinning wheels, multiple S17 spinning wheels. We have several of the drum carders. We have bobbins. We have combs and cards and nitty naughties and all of the things, because I wanted to make sure that I had something for you at Maryland Sheep and Wool if you were looking for a new spinning wheel. So the Jenn-E's are coming too. I also have 3 Jenn-E's on order that should be coming, I hope soon. So if you are looking to pick up a Jenn-E, you can pre-order it through the website. And the website, of course, is therossfarm.com. And all of these things, all the wheels, the e-spinners, the bobbins, the drum carders, everything will be up on the website. If you can't make it to Maryland Sheep and Wool, we can always ship to you. So that's what's new. All of the Louette showing up here at the studio and ready to get on the trailer and head to Maryland Sheep and Wool in 3 weeks. Yay! The reason I wasn't here for recording last week was because I was out and about. So last weekend, my friend Nancy and I went to our North Coast Knitting Guild retreat at Maumee Bay Lodge. And it was beautiful. It was so much fun. We had such a good time. Everybody was so kind. The teachers were excellent. We had Lindsay Fowler, and she has a new book out. You have to go check that out. Lindsay Fowler. It's called Trails and something or other, and I've just lost the title, but Lindsay Fowler. And also Jen Paracchini from Pittsburgh. So another Pittsburgh girl, yay. And she did a lot of classes on sweater fit and bust darts and making a muslin so that your garments actually fit correctly, which I think everybody should take that class. Jen was wonderful. I've taken a similar class with Kate Atherley. It was very good as well. So if you can take a sweater fit class, I think it will kind of expand your understanding of your knitting. But Jen was really, really cool. And Lindsay, of course, is from here in Hudson. So she and I got to know each other when I had the shop. But we were right on the lake. That is the view from the rocking chair I was sitting in while I was knitting. I was looking straight out at the lake, and I was looking directly at the fireplace. It was delightful. It was so relaxing. It was so quiet and peaceful. We had the whole place to ourselves practically, with this beautiful, there were 3 different fireplaces, and then chairs, rocking chairs that were in front of the fireplace where you could see outside, or rocking chairs on an upper level, kind of a bridge gateway between the building, the main lodge, and the rooms. And we sat there along the big long windows and knit in the chairs. And that's where I cast on this one and got some of the first knitting done. So that was really wonderful. And I thought maybe you would like to see what was in my goodie bag too. So the knitting retreat was called Owl Together, which I thought was really cute. And it has a little owl wearing all of his knitwear. And I stuffed some stuff in here. That's my shiny. Oh, this is actually a hat knit out of Nell, our Hog Island yarn. We'll talk about that next time. So what is in here is also a couple of my purchases, which I'll show you those too. So everybody got one of these cute little quilted bags that the ladies from the guild actually made for us. And inside there's some try-it-on tubing, which is super important with your sweater knitting. So we got try it on tubing. All sorts of cool little things, little pair of scissors, a set of crochet hooks to fix things, some highlighter tape, some little tape measure, some hand cream, which is always good to have. I'm always dry. Lip balm, a set of really cute, this is like a keychain, and then some handmade tags, some lens wipes, and some Purell wipes. And then down way in the bottom that I can't quite get my fingers on was a couple of really cute stitch markers. So I thought this was excellent. I can take this with me when I go knitting at places that I know I won't even show it to you, quite obscene bag from my SSK friends that I normally take with me. It has a phrase on it that most people that aren't us would find offensive. So I don't take that with me when I go certain places. So anyways, inside there's also this adorable little notebook with a pen, so I can take all my notes when I'm knitting. And then there was also something else in here, but I don't see it now. So we'll just pretend that's it. Really, really fun, really, really cool, very excellent goodie bag, and reasonably priced. So, what else did I get? Well, I did a little shopping. And you know me, I generally don't do a whole lot of shopping because I have so much already in stash. And, you know, when you're a yarny and you've got your own yarn company, you really don't need to buy a whole lot. But this really hit me and I had to have some. So this is non-superwash. I generally don't buy merino, but it is 100% merino, but it's non-superwash. I don't like superwash. It feels plastic to me. So this is actually a non-superwash worsted in the colorway Vineyard, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And it is from a local to me dyer called Tina's Twisted Fibers. And she was just as delightful as she could possibly be. And she had the coolest things, so I just picked up a couple of things. She actually makes note cards too. And this is, you can't see it, but the heart is actually made out of, it appears to be made out of yarn, and it has a little, so I thought that was really cool. And then I picked up a yarn snuggie and actually picked it up for this one because I knew this one would just blast all over the place when I was trying to fix Drew's socks. So that's how that works. It's really cool. It's just a little snuggie that keeps your yarn from barfing everywhere, which I have a problem with. And then I got the cutest little things. So, you know, I love my Jeeps. And if you love your Jeeps, the thing that happens most is you get docked. So I thought it was really cute. She had a little tail minder that I can put on the end of the yarn on this particular sweater, which apparently is going to fight me to find it. Here it is. So this just wraps around. It wraps around, and then you can fasten it off there. So that keeps your tail from being in the way. And I just thought it was adorable because it's a little yellow duck and it's Easter time. And then I also got another one because why not? And it is a black sheep, which I thought, here, I'll put it here where maybe you can see it. So it's a little black sheep and it does the same thing. And then she had the cutest little, I'm sure these are some sort of polymer clay, but the cutest little stitch markers. And this one is a little gray sheep with a red bow, which I thought was absolutely adorable. And you can zoom in and see that if you'd like to. So that needs to go probably on my knitting. But I thought maybe you'd like to see what I picked up because I don't generally buy things when I'm at shows. I usually either can't get out of the booth or I don't really see anything I don't already have or don't really need. So this was really fun because she had such cool things and was such a delightful person that I decided I was just going to pick up a couple little goodies. And so I picked up those. And once again, she's local to me. She's delightful. And if you are in Ohio or want to go online, I'm sure she has a website too. But her business is called Tina's Twisted Stitches. There was another vendor there, but it was all commercial things, and I didn't really see anything I had to have. Um, so that was my adventure, um, out and about. Also, John and I took a little ride up to Sandusky, and we went to the most adorable little quilt shop, and we met the owner, whose name I forget because all I talked to was the dog. She has a really adorable little Sheltie named Freddie, and he's about a year old. And that is Freddie with his mama, who owns Ethel's Quilt Shop in Sandusky. And it is in an old storefront right in the town of Sandusky. So if you're going to Cedar Point for some reason, there's a quilt shop there, and it's amazing. And she had the most beautiful things. I found several things that I really loved. I thought this was really cute. It was very vintagey looking. If I ever get my laundry room decorated to the point that I can actually decorate it, I would totally make one of those and hang it in there. But of course, that will never happen. And this was really cool too. Um, this was a free pattern online that uses a jelly roll to make this really cool, and it kind of has a patriotic vibe to it. That's kind of what I was drawn to. And you can see that John is talking to the lady while I'm taking pictures. And actually, I was taking pictures with one hand and petting Freddie with the other because he really was adorable. And he was such a good boy, such a good. He was such a good. And he helped me find things all over the store. And I will definitely go back, and not 100% just for the inventory. Freddie was so cute. He was just so good. But she also has a lot of beautiful dyed wool if you're into rug hooking or wool applique. She had a ton of that. It was just a really nice shop. A lot of Henry Glass, a lot of the historic prints, but a lot of the very modern stuff too. And she was showing us around and showing us her display pieces that came off the side of the road, and a couple of ladders that she uses for display pieces that she found like tossed in an alley. And it was just really cool. And the whole store has this beautiful pressed tin ceiling. It's got that whole like golden age, turn of the century, general store um, vibe that I just love. So I will definitely be going back to Ethel's to see the lady whose name is not Ethel and Freddie. So that was really cool. So the good news is it's finally spring here in Northeast Ohio, and it could not come soon enough. I have been just absolutely dying in the cold, gray weather. So the crocus were blooming, a couple of weeks ago, but now we have daffodils, and they make me so happy. The front flower bed started popping up with daffodils and blooming, and then of course it snowed all over the daffodils, so that was not good. But pardon the dead leaves in the flower bed in the Pachysandra, but I read an article that we're not supposed to clean out the flower beds for a couple more weeks yet because the pollinators are hibernating in the debris in the flower beds. So I'm just going to take that as gospel and definitely not do anything to my flower beds that might disturb the pollinators. It certainly has no effect on on that, it's definitely, I'm definitely not avoiding it because I'm tired and I don't feel like doing that yet, and I needed a great reason not to do that. And pollinators as good as any. So we're also decorating inside, and this is these are the little Easter figurines that I have collected pretty much since I was born. Um, they're all different. The ducks on the top shelf, my grandmother painted in the 70s when I was a very little girl, and I made a couple of the things with the ladies down the street who had a ceramic studio. And then Grandma Sharon gave me a few of the hand painted eggs and bunnies when she moved to Florida. And the baskets are kind of a combination of a couple of baskets that I already had, and then a few Duncan Miller baskets that I actually found at thrift shops while John and I were kind of poking around. And the cool thing is the vase in the center is actually blown glass, and the flowers in the top are hand crocheted. And when I found those, I thought they definitely needed to live with me and be in my very special vase. So yeah, that's my that's my Easter there. And then this is another one of the baskets that I've found at a thrift store on my uh, marble top Victorian coffee table. And then there's also the um, the eggs that were hand decorated sometime in the 70s that I found in a little box that I have no recollection of whatsoever, but they were really cute. They're floral, kind of a Japanese vibe to them. And they came with their little stands, so they're on top of the pie safe that came from my great grandmother, along with a few of my oil lamps and my hand carved swan that my mother got when I was a little girl, and I don't know why, but it lives there too. Oh, and that photograph is the covered bridge behind our farm in Pennsylvania, and Scooter took that one um, many years before I met him, which was kind of neat when he moved in and had a photo of the bridge behind the farm. So yeah, weird. And then, of course, that's the basket quilt that I found in a little antique shop for next to nothing. And it's marked on the back the name of the woman who hand embroidered the baskets, and then the name of her daughter who assembled it all and quilted it. And I have no idea how it ended up homeless, but it came home to live with me, and it's now on the wall in the living room. So we're all decorated for Easter. Can't wait. That's next week. Um, yeah. So that's really fun. Now, we're almost done. So I have to remind you that down the road, if you hadn't figured it out yet, is the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. And this year we will be donating two North Country Cheviot ewes through the Youth Conservationist Project. And that is the program where children between the ages of 12 and 18 can write in an essay and submit it requesting a different breed of sheep to start their own small flock. So we had five different people requesting a North Country Cheviot. In the past, we've donated a Jacob, a Shetland, well, several of those. And we usually do a Shetland in memory of Scooter Pie. But this year, Drew wanted to do North Country Cheviots because they're his favorite, they're my favorite, they're our favorite. And we actually had five young ladies who wrote essays requesting one. And two of them really impressed us. So we decided we would give two of the people a North Country Cheviot yearling ewe and to start their flocks with. So we were only supposed to give one, but we decided to give two. And so they will be going to Maryland Sheep and Wool. The presentation is Sunday, late morning, early afternoon. It just depends on how their sheep shows go, but right between like 11 and 1, somewhere in there. We will be giving them away in the show ring. And if you are at Maryland Sheep and Wool and you would like to see all of the different breeds, you can definitely come and watch that. And we would love it if you would come and applaud the children who are taking the initiative to preserve rare and heritage breed sheep. So after that, we're going to Mid-Atlantic Fiber Fest, then Houston. It's going to be a whole thing. I'm very excited. I can't wait. Oh, and Great Lakes Fiber Show. I can't forget that. I am actually teaching fractal spinning at Great Lakes Fiber Show. I think you can probably register right now for my class, but I will also have a double and be vending at Great Lakes, which is in Worcester, Ohio. I know Great Lakes sounds like it's probably somewhere up on the lakes, but it is not. It is kind of smack dab in the middle of Ohio. But that's what it's called. I didn't name it, but I'll be there. So we will see you on down the road. Again, I'm Amy from the Ross Farm. Our website is therossfarm.com. You can follow us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram. You found us here on YouTube. So please give the YouTube videos a like, a share, a comment. Please subscribe. It really helps us to get the word out about heritage and rare breeds. So follow us on social media, and we'll see you again soon.